All right, Shalom Aleichem Rabotai. Welcome to our Wednesday class on Yalkut Yossf. Siman Tov. We just finished Hilchot Tzitzit and we are going to begin Hilchot Tefilin, Simanim 25 to 45, Kaf Hei Tamem Hei. However, since it's also Purim tomorrow, meaning tomorrow is Tani Testel, but this is the last time I'm going to see you, B'ezrat Hashem, before Purim, we cannot let this holiday pass by without saying a few words about it. So B'ezrat Hashem, Bli Neder, I want to share a discovery. For me, it was a discovery that I read today about Purim and the Yalkut Me'am Lo'ez, the Midrash Me'am Lo'ez. So maybe we'll reserve 10 minutes of the end of the class to talk about Purim. And now we will dive right into the halachot of Tefilin. All right. So how do we begin? For starters, why do we put on Tefilin? We have Tefilin on our hand and we have Tefilin on our head. What is the source? Everything has a source. So we have
because we have bar mitzvah. We have bar mitzvah, that's why we can put Tefilin.
Okay. That's a good reason. But why, when you're bar mitzvah, do you put on tefillin? What's the source? There's a pasuk that we read in Kriyat Shema every day, or in Kadesh Li. Ve'aleot al yadecha ultotafot benenecha. That's in Shema. Kadesh Li is something else, but ot al yadecha ultotafot benenecha. Ot al yadecha means you should have a sign on your arm. Ultotafot benenecha, and another one between your eyes. Now, this language caused a lot of problems because there was a period where there were people called tzedokim, which did not believe in the oral Torah, and they only accepted the written Torah. According to the written Torah, the tefillin of the head should be placed between the eyes. So you see people putting tefillin over here. Can you imagine that? We have some characters in our community that sometimes you see that happens. But that's the minhag of the tzedokim, and anywhere that you put on the tefillin that does not have hair, I'm talking about the original hairline that us Persians used to have, not what happens to us once we grow older, but that place of where the hair was once located, that's the area, the forward limit of where you're allowed to put the tefillin shel rosh, right? Backwards, you could go back until the area where your head starts going lower again, until the highest point, that's okay. So you have actually more space backwards, but forwards, you cannot pass the original hairline that you had. Hopefully for all of us, we still have, but all right, so that's the source. Now, there's a midrash called Midrash Shocher Tov, and the midrash says like this: Amru Yisrael sherotzim lekayem et kol haTorah aval lo yicholim. Am Yisrael came and said, we want to keep the whole entire Torah, but we cannot, it's too much. Hashem oneh, and Hashem answers, Tanichu tefillin, put on tefillin. It's as if like you kept the whole Torah. Why? Because the pasuk says, "Leman tiyeh Torat Adonai beficha." This is what we have in Kadesh Likol Bechor. Ve'alot al yadecha ultotafot benenecha. Leman tiyeh Torat Adonai beficha, so that the Torah of Hashem should be in your mouth. By putting on tefillin, Hashem says, "Ma'aleh ani alechem kilu kiyamtem et kol haTorah." I look at you as if you kept the whole entire Torah. Now, some would say, "Wow, amazing! Then I don't have to keep anything else." We have to be careful with the language of Chachamim. Chachamim say if you put on tefillin, you kept all the Torah. No, that's not what it says. It says, Hashem says it's as if. All right, so it's still not obvious, but as if is all, we'll take it. As if is also good enough. That's why Baruch Hashem in our community we see that there's certain things that even people that were very far, you don't see so much. But tefillin is like the ABCs in our community, Baruch Hashem, and thank God it's a mitzvah, they say, that has mazal. You know, some mitzvah don't have mazal, some mitzvah have mazal. Tefillin, a lot of people, their heart is connected to it. All right, so what does this mean? Ve'aleot al yadecha. There should be a sign or a symbol on your hand and on your forehead. So there's a pasuk in the Torah that says, Al pi shnaim edim yakum davar. That if you want to testify on something, you need a minimum of 2 witnesses. Without that, the testimony is not worth anything. Where are the witnesses? I have 1, no good. And that's why we all have 3 witnesses. 1 witness is our Brit Milah, 1 witness is the Tefillin, and the third one, who knows? What's the third witness?
Shabbat.
Shabbat. I was like, Steve, you're about to say Shabbat?
No, I was about to say something else. Wedding.
No, but meaning this is a witness. This is a symbol between us and Hashem. Chazak Baruch. Tefillin, Brit Milah, and Shabbat. So the reason why we do not put on tefillin on Shabbat is because we already have 2 witnesses. The Shabbat joined in, so it's a witness, and the Brit Milah is a witness that we always have. Since we already have the 2, we don't need the third one. which is tefillin. Even though there's a source that says that tefillin on Shabbat are not muktzeh and you should put them on, it's a machloket, but la'alacha, we do not touch tefillin on Shabbat. All right. Now, tefillin shenimtza'u pesulot. What happens to a person that his tefillin were found with a psul? A psul means they are not kosher anymore. It could be because of the shape of the tefillin. It started becoming round instead of looking like a square box, or because it lost some color or shape or the strength, or the letters itself were a problem. You found two letters that were attached one to the other. Halacha is, and we're not going to get to all the halachot of tefillin because the halachot specifically of a sofer stam are not relevant so much to us, but it's how to write the letters. There's so much ink spilled about that, how to write the letters. But one thing that we need to know is that there should always be a gap of white around the letter, which means if two letters made contact and there was no white between them, that's pasul. There's have to be a stop between the tefillin. Some tefillin you're able to fix and make kosher. Some problems are irreversible, especially if the problem was in the beginning of the tefillin. We'll get to all this, Bezat Hashem, but basically when the sofer writes down the tefillin, especially in the tefillin shel yad, the tefillin shel yad is just one long scroll of tefillin that has the arba parshiot, that has Shema v'aya im shamua, Kadesh li v'aya kivyacha. It has all four of those in there. However, in the tefillin shel Rosh, it's four different scrolls. So if, let's say, the last scroll would be problematic, you could switch the last scroll. But with the tefillin shel yad, it's all on one scroll. So if you have a problem with the scroll, the whole thing is, there are a lot of potential tefillin. So what happens if someone has tefillin that now he took him to a bedika? It's recommended to take it every once in a while, unless you know that your tefillin are written by a sofer stam that was perfect, kadosh, tzaddik, everything is. Then you are exempt from checking your tefillin. You could leave it your whole life. However, if you know or you're not sure, or if this is a pair of tefillin that you weren't putting on every day, you had another one and now you want to use that one, since you did not use it every day, it's recommended to go and check that one at least maybe twice every 7 years or so. So I found, not me, but somebody found a mistake in their tefillin. The sofer said, sorry, I checked your tefillin, there's a problem with it. What do we have to do? How do we fix that? We should never come to the situation. It's a terrible feeling. But we should know that in that case, it's enough to do teshuvah. You don't have to do ta'aniyot because it brings that their opinion. Maybe you have to do ta'aniyot, and you don't have to do anything like that. Hashem saw that you have a good heart, good thought, and therefore He counts it lemaaseh. Now, he points out, the Yalkut Yossf, that he counts it to a maaseh, which means it seems as if it's considered that you meant well, so you did it. But he says, but we cannot say that you got the mitzvah. Well, you did not get the mitzvah of tefillin, but we cannot say about it that you didn't put on tefillin. You understand the language? Meaning, okay, you weren't mekayem the mitzvah, but it's not that bad. Do ta'anit, don't do ta'anit. It's enough to do teshuvah. But therefore, we have to be careful. I'll tell you a story. There was a guy that after his bar mitzvah, there was a sticker of the kashrut of the tefillin on the bottom of the box. And the rabbi came one day while he was praying and said, oh, you have such nice tefillin. And then he took it off to show the Rav, and the Rav saw that there was a sticker on the box of the tefillin on the bottom where it makes contact with the head. Told him that's a chatzitza. You're not allowed to have something that stops between the tefillin and you. That's as if you did not put on tefillin. So hopefully throughout the learning here, we're going to discover very basic things that me, myself, Baruch Hashem, a lot of people, we do this every day, but we don't know. So hopefully we'll get some better insight on this. That's the goal of this class. It's not just to go through the halachot, but to be more practical. So as we said, it's a custom to check your tefillin twice every 7 years. There's also a custom to check the tefillin in Chodesh Elul. Again, if it was written, he says, Al yedei sofer mumche, by a special sofer, a writer, then minadin from the halacha, we don't even have to check them at all. Unless they were laying in the closet, as we said. All right, now regarding the sofer stam. You come to buy tefillin for your son, he has a bar mitzvah, or for yourself, you want a new pair. You're talking to the sofer, the guy that wrote it, to know what to ask him. Oh, is it good? Yeah, it's good. No. So first of all, there are a lot of criteria for the sofer. He has to be focused. He can't listen to music in the background. Yeah, his mind needs to be to this mitzvah, l'shem kedushat tefillin. He has to have right. And of course, when he writes the letters of the name of Hashem, he has to have certain kavanah. So you can't just take it from anyone. You have to have someone recommended. but there's something right now regarding the way he writes the tefillin. So what makes tefillin mehudal, makes it very, very high level of tefillin? Of course, you have the author of the tefillin, that he's holy, etc. He had good kavanah. But there are also technical things that make it holy. One is the parchment. You have higher quality and low quality. The ink that is used, okay? Now, regarding the ink that is used, there's also what is called the kaneh, the item that they use to actually write. The original way to do it is either with a piece of wood that they sharpen, or a feather of a bird that they sharpen it, and then they dip it in the ink and they start writing. What's the challenge with this? It's a challenge that exists for thousands of years. That's how they did it. But after a few letters, the ink dries, so you have to go back and re-dip. And if you dip too much, then you have too much ink. And then when you come to write, maybe it'll spread on the letter, it'll ruin the letter, and now the whole thing is ruined. So they have come up, through the wonders of technology, with a solution to that, something called refidograph. Refidograph is like a special author's pen that's made from aluminum. It has ink inside, but you don't have to dip and sharpen and move. It never gets deteriorated. It's always the same. It's like an actual pen. It just has ink inside, and whenever you push a button, it releases a little bit of the ink, and it always does it in a way that it never drips. All the letters look perfect. They all look the same size, never have any ink issues. So why wouldn't everybody do this? And the answer is because this is not mehudal. If you want tefillin that are mehudal, the higher level of tefillin, author should not use that. Rav Ovadia says that if an author wrote the tefillin that way, you look, you say, wow, this handwriting is like a typewriter. It's unbelievable. He is obligated to tell you that he used refidograph because it lowers the level of the holiness of the tefillin. And even though it's kosher, but the salesman has to tell you that it was written like that. So this is a very important question to ask today in the technology of today, where if you're buying tefillin, make sure the author did not write it with refidograph, which basically means like a special pen that's made from aluminum, but rather from the original way, that piece of wood or the feather. Right? Yalkut Yossf also tells us that whoever forgot to put on tefillin for one day, he should do teshuvah, he should give tzedakah, and he should be more careful from now on to try better. And he says, V'lehaba gam Rabbeinu Tam, he should try, since he missed one day, to add another pair of tefillin, which is Rabbeinu Tam. Some of us already put it, some of us still don't. It's a strong recommendation. Yeah, adding a pair of tefillin is not a little thing. But at a certain point in life, when someone feels comfortable, he should try to put on the Rabbeinu Tam. Even Rab Ben Chaim, which for many years was saying we have Rashi. The halacha is like Rashi. For those of you that don't know, I'm sure you all know, but we have Rashi, which is the common tefillin, and that's the halacha, that's the one I need to put on, at least according to the Peshat. According to Kabbalah, you need both of them. According to the Peshat, the one is Rashi. However, Rashi's grandson, his name was Rabbeinu Tam, and he held that the order of the scrolls inside the tefillin should be different. Regarding how everything is written inside, there are 4 parshiot, so each one of them held that they should be written differently. So those that want to be careful, put both of them on to make sure that they're not missing the mitzvah. We'll get to this, whether that should be done simultaneously or it should be one after the other. And he says if you forgot one day, it's good that you try to cover it up by adding another pair of tefillin. All right. Why? Who can tell me this? Why, when we come to put on our tefillin, we first put on tzitzit? If anything, tefillin is holier. Tefillin has the names of Hashem written inside of it. Why don't we put the tefillin first and then the tzitzit? I'll give you a hint.
Tzitzit is an article of clothing. You put on your clothes first, and then no, it's not. That's what I thought.
Very nice, but there's also a reason that we also see with the candles of Hanukkah. How come the Gemara says, how come we start with 1 and we go to 8? How come we don't start with 8 and go down to 1? Like the Purim of Bet Shammai, by the way. We follow Hillel because Ma'alin b'kodesh v'en moridin, which means when it comes to the level of Kedusha, we always climb up. You don't start with the higher, then go lower. You have to climb up. And since tefillin is in a higher level, that would be the reason. Ma'alim b'kodesh. And there's another halacha that's very important. And if you remember one thing of today, please remember this. There's another mitzvah that's called En ma'avirim ala mitzvot, which means when a mitzvah comes passing by you, You can't say, no, I'm not going to do it now. I'm doing something else. Later, I'll do this mitzvah. I'll come back to it. Once the mitzvah came near you, you are obligated to first do that mitzvah and then continue to the other mitzvah. Practically with us, if your tefillin bag, the tefillin are on top and the talit is in the bottom, when you open, what's in front of you first? The tefillin. So when that happens, you wouldn't be allowed to put on your talit first, because what will you be doing? You will be ma'avir la mitzvah. You'll be skipping over the mitzvah that is in front of you, the mitzvah of tefillin. And therefore, those of you that pack it together, I think most of us do it that way, be careful to put first the tefillin inside deeper, and on top of that the talit. Or if they're laying one on top of the other, at least when you open your zipper, I have an example, a live example here. All right? So the talit should be here, and deeper in, I don't know if you can see with the camera, this is the tefillin, you see? But talit is more standing out. So that way it's the first thing that you see. Since it's the first thing that you see, you're not over al mitzvot and you take the talit. But according to the Peshat meaning Yalkut Yossf, if you did happen to touch your tefillin first, you will have to take them out first, say the bracha on them, and only later on put the talit. He says, unless if you are a rabbi or a figure in a community where people are going to look at you and say, what, he doesn't know the halacha, look at him, what he's putting on tefillin before talit. We all know that you have to put on talit and tefillin. Look at this guy. If he's going to be embarrassed, then Hashem has mercy for the kavod haberiot, humility for someone getting embarrassed. Therefore, he would be exempt and he was allowed to put on the talit first. The truth is that according to Kabbalah, even if you messed up like that, you should still put on the talit first. But we're not learning Kabbalah, we're learning Yalkut Yossf. But since why would we bring ourselves in this controversy, machloket? Well, be careful, put the talit on top so that would be the first thing that you come across. And we have time for one more quick halacha, then we'll touch Purim Be'ezrat Hashem. All right, so when do we put on the tefillin? Yalkut Yossf brings down that there was a rabbi called Harosh. He was the student of the Maharam Rothenburg, Germany. And the Rosh says that he would put on the tefillin during Birkot HaShachar. There's a bracha in Birkot HaShachar. When we get to Birkot HaShachar, we'll talk about it. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, oter Yisrael betif'ara. It's one of the brachot in the morning. Translation, you put a crown on us with glory. That's referring to the tefillin. So the Rosh says, when do you put on the tefillin? When you say that blessing of the crown here, this is the right time. But our custom is not like that. Our custom is like the Ari Kadosh, that he says, first of all, read all of Birkot HaShachar separately, and then finish, come the tefillin, the talit, and then the tefillin. That should be the right order. Okay, we'll stand here with the halachot for today, B'ezrat Hashem bli neder, and now we'll talk a little bit about Purim. So, I'm going to share with you a new opinion that to me was discovered this year, and maybe you already knew it, but every year we have, hopefully, with the help of Hashem, new discoveries about the Megillah. So, this year, my personal discovery for me was from the Am Lo'ez. The Am Lo'ez, all of you know it, this is the Hebrew version, but I'm sure all of you are familiar with the English version, which looks like this, right? You recognize this book? Yeah, I remember, Steve, you told me, yeah. So, the Am Lo'ez says like this. The topic of the day would be, we have this king Achashverosh. Where did he come from? This is what we're just trying to discover. What are his roots? 2 years ago, when we had our class, some of you still didn't join us at the time. I think Marcel, Igal, Giacomo, Mr. William, all of you we didn't have the zchut of having you as a part of our class. Bli neder, after the class, I'm going to send a link to that shiur about Purim from 2 years ago. It's very nice. There's a short idea on the Megillah, how it begins, ends, right? But we're going to try to give a new angle this year, so you'll have both Be'ezrat Hashem. So who is this Achashverosh? So let's go to the time where the Persians right now were sitting in Persia, and the rulers of Israel were actually the Babylonians. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babel, he destroyed the Beit HaMikdash, he deported us to Israel, and we were under the 70 years of Galut. Ezra, the prophet, Daniel already understood that this is going to be 70 years of Galut, and after that, we are going to go back to Eretz Israel. That's what was going to happen. Ezra, the whole story. So, the rulers in Israel at the time, or sorry, not in Israel, in Paras. Who was the king of Paras at the time? So, Nebuchadnezzar, let's go back to Babel. He had a grandson called Belshazzar. Belshazzar was ruling Babel. But Paras at the time, it was actually two nations. There was Paras and there was Madai. And then they joined. We'll see in a second how they joined. But there was a king of Paras, and his name was Estorgis. Estorgis, that's what his name. He did not have any sons. He only had one daughter. And therefore, the servants of the king, they thought to themselves that if we marry this girl, then we will become the heirs to the king. So it's worth it to try. And one of them became close to the princess, and he got her pregnant. And once the king heard that, he said, hang him. And they, of course, they took that guy for hanging, and he put his own daughter, his own only daughter, in prison, this king Estorgis. And once she gave birth to that son, he said, take that son and put it in the mountain so that it dies. He didn't want to kill his own grandson. And this was a surprise for me. He said, put him in the mountains. And you hear fairy tales like this. You hear stories about Tarzan, and you think, where did they come up with these ideas? Listen to this. The Midrash says that Hashem made a miracle, and a female dog came and nursed that baby as it was a baby on the mountain. And this baby's name was Koresh, or Kurosh, as we know. And this Koresh grew on the mountain with the animals, with this dog taking care of it, until finally he grew up and became stronger and stronger. And the word came to the king, this Estorgis, that his grandson that was born from the non-kosher servant is now grown up. So the king sent people to the mountains to kill his grandson. And when they come to kill him, he was already strong. He was like an animal, and he ripped all of them apart. And not only that, after he ripped all of them apart, he decided to go back to the palace of his grandfather and kill them and kill his own grandfather. And that's what he did. He killed his grandfather, and then he became the king of Paras. And that's how we got Koresh. That's the story of Koresh. Koresh was the king of Paras. And there was another king of what we know today as Madai. They were joined later on. The king of Madai, his name was Daryavish, or as we call them in our community, Dariush. Daryavish was so impressed with the king of Paras, Koresh, and what he did, that he said, I want you to marry my daughter. And Daryavish sent his daughter to marry Koresh. And now that they became in-laws or something like that, married together, they united. And with this unity, they said, you know what? There's an evil king ruling the world. The king of Bavel, his name is Belshazzar, the grandfather of Nebuchadnezzar that destroyed the Beit HaMikdash. How about we go and fight him? Let's bring him down. Why do we need to be under his rulership? That's what they attempt to do. They go on to combat against Belshazzar, but Belshazzar destroys them. And Koresh comes back home defeated, and he doesn't know at this point what to do. But Belshazzar, on the other hand, he who just survived the war and was so happy about it, he threw a huge party. And in this huge party, he also took out the kelim of Beit HaMikdash, all the holy kelim, maybe shulchan, menorah, whatever he had. And he was doing a big lechaim with all the people. Only this, we mentioned in the past, a magical hand came out of the sky into his party and wrote on the wall, Maneh, Maneh, Takel Ufarsin. I heard a Perush by Rav Yalkut Yossf just from his own lips. I heard it a couple of days ago in a video I saw of him, where he was saying, what is Maneh, Maneh? Maneh is to weigh something. So you were weighed, Maneh, Maneh. Why does it say it twice? Rav Yalkut says because they weighed his zechuyot and they weighed his bad deeds. And Takelu Farsin, and we found out that your bad deeds are much more than your good deeds, and therefore you're going to lose. And to who you're going to lose? To the Persian kings. And that's what happened. So he got so terrified that someone is going to come from the Persians after he already thought that he defeated them and going to come kill him. So he said, it's going to happen tonight. I have to watch myself. He said, lock the palace. Don't allow anyone in. Anyone that tries to come in, kill him. Even if he says that he is the king, that it's me, don't let me in. Kill me even if it happens. And that's how the story goes on. At the middle of the night, he had to go to the restroom. Back then, the restroom was not inside the castle or the palace. He had to go to the river and come back. He leaves to the river. When he comes back, I guess the guards changed. They didn't recognize him. He said, what are you doing? Let me in. No, the king said, no, come. I'm the king. Let me in. You're the king. They kill him. And that's how Belshazzar dies. And this fascinated Daryavish and Koresh that heard that the king just died by his own ruling, that anyone that tries to come into the palace will die. So they go into the palace running in. And as they run into the palace, they sit down on the chair of the king. And the daughter of this Belshazzar that was just killed by his own people comes running to the chair. She thought it was her father. Then she looks up and she sees it's Daryavish. He sees this Daryavish, this Persian king, and he sees that she's pretty. She was 12 years old. He said, you know what? Let me save you. He saves this girl for 6 years, and then eventually he marries her off with the son of Koresh, meaning his grandson, which is Achashverosh. So Koresh later on had a son called Achashverosh, and Vashti is this girl, the daughter of Belshazzar that they found in the war. And the Suda that he brought 180-day meal to the people. One of the reasons to celebrate was the celebration of his wedding with Vashti. Achashverosh marries Vashti. Only what happened when Koresh and Daryavish, when he saw this big miracle that Belshazzar was killed by his own promise that whoever comes into the palace will kill him, he saw the Hashgacha of Hashem, and he understood that this is because Belshazzar treated the kelim, the vessels of Bet HaMikdash, in an improper way, and he made a neder. He swore that once he gets to sit on the chair of kingdom in Bavel, because now they conquered it from Belshazzar, which is basically ruling the world, he will allow the Jews, and not only allow, but help the Jews to go back to Israel and rebuild their Beit HaMikdash. And there's a nice story here in the middle, but I don't know if the time will allow us, but long story short, later on he forgot. Someone reminded him, a prophet called Zerubbabel reminded him his promise, and so he commanded his son-in-law Koresh, please go and let the Jews build Bet HaMikdash. And that's how the book of Ezra begins. The book of Ezra that we once learned together begins with the statement of Koresh, Jews, go back to rebuild your Bet HaMikdash. Only now, the ruler after Koresh passes away is Achashverosh's son. And Achashverosh had a very bad advisor called Haman, as well as his own wife Vashti, that both told him, do not build the Bet HaMikdash. Vashti said, my great-grandfather destroyed the Bet HaMikdash and wasn't relaxing until it was completely doomed, and now you're going to want to rebuild it. And Haman as well said, no, if you build the Bet HaMikdash, they're going to rebel against you. And so the dreams of the Jews that the Bet HaMikdash will be rebuilt got shattered, and they all said, Voi, Voi. And that's how the Megillah begins. Voi hi bimei Achashverosh. That's the bad news that opens up with the Megillah. But I'm going to leave you with something positive. Today I had a chavruta with somebody, asked me, give me something for Purim. So I'm telling you what I would tell for myself. The tefillah of Purim is a special tefillah. It's a certain light that comes down once a year, where whatever we ask for, Hashem answers, because Hashem says, whoever opens his hand to you, you have to give him tzedakah on that day. That's the halacha. And whatever Hashem tells us to do, he does as well. So anything that we cry out to Hashem for, Bezrat Hashem, he will answer us. So take your time during the tefillah, during the Shemoneh Esrei, devote another minute one-on-one with Hashem, asking for Am Yisrael, for our soldiers, for our families, for our Torah, for our community, for whatever you like. Take advantage. Don't let this precious time pass by without praying properly. All right, gentlemen, great you. Chazak u'baruch. We'll see you next week. Bezrat Hashem. Have a Purim Sameach. Purim Sameach.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Purim Sameach.
Sameach.